than that, Fernando, over to you.
Okay. So first of all, I'll just like to say that I'm not going to go into any specific tooling or technical details in this talk. This is going to be just general terms how to create your internal development platform in 6 steps. And this is the agenda of the things that we're going to be touching. So let's start with platform engineering. Platform engineering is a practice aiming to deliver self-service and excellent developer experience, DevX and DX. That's how we usually see them abbreviated, via an internal development platform. And we are going to be touching on these points along this talk. So what is developer experience? DevX is a cultural approach aiming to simplify all areas that don't contribute or hinder the creative output and the delivery of applications for developers. So it is achieved by simplifying or eliminating some of these things, configuration management, such as like configuring servers or running Ansible or even doing Kubernetes manifest files, infrastructure provisioning, getting the developers to use too much Terraform or CloudFormation or something like that, environment configuration, ensure that there is no drift between environments and that they're all the same, and then tedious processes. Think of working in a bank and having to do a lot of paperwork even, or filing a lot of tickets or talking to a lot of people in order to be able to do something. And a big one for me is that tooling with bad user experience usually contributes a lot to bad developer experience. If you have tools that are very difficult to use or very tedious, usually your developers will probably resent that, or maybe they will not resent it outright, but they will probably feel it. And when I mean user experience, I don't just mean UI, because sometimes people make that association, but user experience is just like the entire experience of the entire design of the tool. So why is DevX important? If the aim of an organization is to deliver better software faster, I mean, it's correlated that any process improvement that does not make the developer experience better hinders that goal. So bad DevX usually results in burnout, developers having to do too much extra work that is not actually delivering and writing code. Slow software delivery, less deploys, fewer deploys. Lower quality software. Lower quality software, I think this probably has a direct correlation with burnout. If you spend all day doing tedious tasks and drudgery, ultimately you're not going to be able to deliver the same quality of software that you would normally do. And then bad developer experience increases developer churn rate. If you have a bad developer experience, likely many of your employees would leave. So an internal development platform is a combination of tools to create golden paths and deliver developers their service, significantly reducing cognitive load. It caters to various user personas to provide multiple abstraction levels based on roles. And we're going to go now into what we mean with that. So what organizations can benefit from an internal development platform? Usually, not every organization would benefit from one because you have to create it, set it up. It's a significant amount of work up front. So we usually recommend that organizations with a high developer count, 50 engineers or more, or planning to scale fast past that point, companies that require a lot of compliance or things that are not met by your infrastructure provider, like your platform as a service or whatever you're using, and high customization, requiring in-house solution with complete ownership, maybe you're using some private cloud or whatever. So what about all other companies? Does that mean that all other companies cannot benefit for some of the stuff in this talk? Well, I think all companies can benefit from having good developer experience. And I would say that all companies can practice this culture and also design applications to be portable in case you ever need to actually use an internal development platform in the future. Think 12-factor apps. For me, 12-factor apps are a bit of operational experience as well, because developers, when they create 12-factor apps, they are good to be deployed in a Kubernetes cluster or whatever. Then I would say you can favor platform as a service and software as a service if that suits your needs. don't feel like you have to go for the most complex theme that you have available to you. Don't feel that you have to cater to all the features because you may not need it. And it's better if you go small and you don't have a lot of complexity and just go with that. Don't just think on face value costs, because sometimes you may look at the cost of a tooling and it may look expensive, but then if you factor in the amount of work that you have to do for cheaper tooling, you may end up losing money in the end, or losing time, which is arguably even more important than money sometimes.
Fernando, sorry,
Yeah.
can you, I see people flagging, but can you double click? Yeah, only now information appeared on the slide. Before it was like half of the screen white. So I don't know.
Sorry?
It was like half of the screen blank. And yeah, there were a couple like technical details, but now everything shows up properly. So
sorry about that. Was a lot of it missing? Okay.
Yeah, did you finish with the slide? No, now it looks perfect. I don't know, maybe it was not working, but
right.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Where was I? Yeah, so if you need to get buy-in from your organization to use an internal development platform, here are some ideas. By the way, all of the ideas I'm mentioning here, they're not an exhaustive list. They're just as comprehensive as they can be in the space that we have here, but don't feel this is exhaustive. Some ideas is apply link logic. I mean, the bottleneck to releasing good software quickly is often bad developer experience. If the developer experience is not good, then you're not going to be able to deliver software faster. And I would say measure steps and time wasted for developers in convoluted tooling and bad processes. Measure churn out of developers due to bad developer experience. Measure enrollment time, how long until new developers get up to speed. And measure configuration and infrastructure sprawl. And then once you have the numbers, you can present them, and it makes for a more compelling argument. Right, so these are the steps that we're going to go through. And we're going to start with the cultural foundations. Now, let me explain this a little bit. So on the left, you have this thing called mariscada, which is this type of platter that we usually eat in Galicia, where I come from. And this is awesome. I like seafood, but it's also a lot of work to eat because you have to open all the shellfish and it's messy with your fingers. It's quite a lot of work. I think if you ate this every day, you probably get tired of, doing all of that. One reason why I love sushi, and it's probably my favorite food, and the best way for me to eat seafood, is because the chef does all of the work for you. And this is exactly, for me, what platform engineering should be about, is like teams giving a complete experience, whereas you just have to consume it. You don't have to do a lot of extra work. Like you don't have to open all this seafood, it's just there for you to consume it. So for me, the cultural foundation of DevX is this: you deliver something that is complete and is easily consumable. And this is a graph that I found online. I found in a blog post, but this is really good because it shows that if you take minimal amount of complexity when you design your internal development platform, your user is going to be upset because they're going to have to do a lot of extra work. But if you take most of the complexity yourself, the user doesn't have to do as much work and it saves time. And this is
white screen again. Sorry. Oh. Yeah, I think you have to click twice. That's why. That's very.
I have to click twice. Okay. All right. Gotcha. Yeah. Sorry about that. Sorry, everyone.
No worries.
All right. So what was I? All right, so yeah, moving along, these are some ideas to lay the cultural foundations better in your company. Teach what good design and user experience means. Draft engineering principles together with the teams that align with this culture. You can always talk to all your team leads and make sure that you all understand the culture the same. Run workshops that teach engineers to design intuitive tooling and solutions. And maybe appoint a DevX expert or product manager to ensure that your culture principles are evangelized and your internal development platform is well designed as well. Now, this is outline the personas of your IDP. This image right here, these are, let me click here just in case it's not shown. Okay, so when I bought the Samsung TV, it came with these two remotes. And it was very interesting because both of the remotes were on the table, but no one used the remote at the bottom. Everyone used the remote at the top. And even though the remote at the bottom does so much more than the one at the top. And this is because it's just so overwhelming to touch, to look at it, and just to find whatever you need to do. Whereas the one at the top has the most useful features for the TV, to go navigate through the menus, go up and down with the volume and all of that. And this is a good example of what I mean by creating the personas of your IDP. Because if you look at this, there's a flexibility and usability trade-off. If you give all of your users all of the features, it's not just a matter of role-based access control, it's also a little overwhelming. It's a bit like when you go into the AWS console and you just get overwhelmed by all of these options, right? Sometimes you just need abstraction. You need things that are simple. So when you're delivering an internal development platform, you should create a list of personas and try to deliver an experience to each persona. That way you can compartmentalize it more. Because otherwise, I mean, it is an internal development platform. It will be a complex tool. So obviously you want to do something like this. So you may list like types of developers using the platform. Platform engineers are users too, and yeah, maybe project managers and other non-technical users. Right. So now that you have your personas, you can list features and map them to personas. And to know what those features are, you may want to talk to your teams, your developers, see what they need, list all of them, and then use the Pareto principle. Don't just implement every single feature. Just implement the ones that are most useful first, because those are the ones that are probably going to be used the most, like 80% of the time. And yeah, you can order the features by most to least important and just implement them slowly. And I said in this part, be opinionated towards best practices and company policies and developer experience. So pick features that actually follow your compliance as well and help you, integrate with best practices. Right. So here we're implementing our IDP, and we are aiming first. When you first start, you aim for a minimum viable product, and then you aim in iterations. So while implementing your IDP, remember that an IDP is a combination of tooling. So focus on tooling that provides great user experience, again, because that's going to be quite important for the overall experience of your developers. Yeah, don't reinvent the wheel. If an existing tool does what you need, pick that. Aim for short delivery cycles, the first cycle being your MVP. And consider using one or a few teams to pilot your IDP. Don't feel like that you have to deploy to everyone at once, because that way, when you get to more teams, it will be more of a complete product. Step 5 is feedback. Now, one thing I have to say about feedback, when you get feedback for any tooling that you create, don't patronize your users and don't gaslight them. Because sometimes you may be doing this subconsciously. You may be saying like, oh, you just don't understand it. You just don't get it. If they don't get it, that is an opportunity for you to improve the design. You should always aim for a design that is very intuitive. And sometimes if people are not understanding what you mean, it's because you're naming it wrong or because you're organizing it wrong. You should always take this on board. And one good method to get to the bottom of your design issue is using the 5 whys method, which is also using SRE, but you can just go back. I mean, why did the user couldn't find this feature? And then go back until the root, and never stop at the user. Never just say, oh, this is because the user didn't see this or whatever. Always try to make a design that is safe and is intuitive. And then the last step is iterate. I mean, the past 5 steps just go over and over and over again. You know, you always have to keep iterating to make your platform better. So that's it. That's what I have. And the conclusion for me out of this talk, if you want to have one takeaway from this talk, is that if you're gonna create a platform, ensure that the developer experience of the platform is better or much better than what you currently have. Because if you implement something that sucks, then you can run into a situation like this, that your developers, you know, cannot use, or you know, they don't like using, or whatever. So, and yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the end of the talk. It was a short one. This is me. Feel free to get in touch. This is my my LinkedIn handle. If you have any questions or you want to talk to me there, I'm always happy to chat. Feel free to connect. I'm also on Twitter, but I'm more active in LinkedIn. And now let's see if there's any questions or anything. Wow.
Thank you for a very concise talk, Fernando. But here we have a question from Menino. Do all IDPs follow or have to follow the same framework, or each have their own way of doing things? And what is the best practice for a good DevX framework?
Well, I mean, what I just explained here is one way of implementing an ADP. I think is quite generalist. It doesn't mean that this is the only way that you can do it. You can do it in any other way, but the main takeaway that you should take from this is that you should always focus on good developer experience. And in terms of like good developer experience framework, is like just anything that frustrates your developers' work. And I'm not talking about, oh, you know, they need to be relaxed, give them a shoulder massage. No, it's not like that. It's kind of like your developers need to be able to work very efficiently with the least amount of friction. They shouldn't have to do a lot of extra infrastructure work and all of that. So it is quite a simple rule of thumb, but you know, you can always come up with additional ideas, even more than the ones that I mentioned here. I mean, I'll get back to that slide. And yeah, I hope that answered your question. Sorry. Is there any other questions? Or
Menino says, thank you, Fernando. Good developer experience, feedback, and CI/CD. And now there are a lot of questions, Fernando, so get ready. Is there a balance to developer effort that is expected when we provide in the developer experience? If a developer wants a full automated one-button experience without any understanding to what they are doing, is that a best practice or a never-ending effort?
That's a good question, actually. I'd say that, I mean, if a developer is able to be very productive without having an understanding on how the infrastructure works, why not? I mean, if you're able to get the most out of your developer without them needing to know even Kubernetes or anything else, then I don't see that as a problem. Now, some developers may want to be involved than others. It doesn't mean that when you have an internal development platform, they can be cut off. You can abstract them away from everything. That really depends on the situation. And I think different teams will have different needs. So you're going to have to cater according to that.
Cool. Not sure. Do you have a framework to indicate, to create an IDP, either like some sort of framework you can reference, or maybe you're working on something?
Yeah, we have, I mean, the reason why we have for Humanitec, we have some reference architectures that we can share at a later point. The reason why I didn't include them here is because I wanted to keep this agnostic and not make it like we were trying to sell a product, but we have some architectures that you can use as a reference to use, and we can probably share that later.
Yeah, with the follow-up or whenever they'll become open. How do successful IDPs typically come about in an organization? Top-down, bottom-up, organically?
How do what, sorry? How?
how do successful IDPs typically come about in an organization? So how do they start, like top down, bottom up, or organically? Who should start this IDP process, like engineer, I would say, or like VP of platform engineering, saying now we have this new cool initiative?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a combined effort I think a good ADP is not just like someone from the top saying we need to do this and now it gets done. If the people at the bottom don't buy into the idea, or they're not persuaded to follow this approach, you're never gonna. I don't envision you having a very good IDP. I think generally speaking, like good agile companies listen to their engineers. So the engineers usually lead the charge in these approaches. This is why it's important that your organization actually empowers you to do this, and you can actually present something and they can actually support you for it. So to answer your question, I mean, I guess it varies between companies, but if you want to do it well, you need like entire company to support you there. Any other questions?
There are a lot of questions, Fernando. Prepare, impress yourself. What's the relationship between platform engineering teams and CI/CD pipelines? What's the division of labor between product application teams and the platform team?
What is the difference between application teams and platform teams?
Division of labor. How do you divide resources between platform team and application team?
Well, so I would interpret that as platform engineer and developers, right? Well, that really depends. Like I said, some developers would want to be more hands-on, and some of them won't. I'd say that platform engineers should design a platform that is as abstracted as possible, but with the option to be more to go more into depth if someone wants to. So it really depends on your organization, but I think you should aim to abstract as much as possible to make it easy for your applications. And in terms of like the different tasks that both do, I'd say that platform engineers, generally speaking, are more geared towards infrastructure and developing the platform, whereas your developers are just the users of that platform.
And there is another good question. Are there open source IDPs? And I see in the chat, people started referencing Backstage is open source. So can you give a bit more context, like is Backstage an IDP?
So Backstage is not an IDP. Backstage is a developer portal, which is a piece of an IDP. An IDP is a combination of tools. So for an IDP, you will have a developer portal where people go in, but then obviously you need to have your core of your internal development platform. For us, it's a platform orchestrator, sits at the center, but it could be your combination of Kubernetes and Argo CD, or you may have something else to abstract that away. But one thing to understand about Backstage is mostly like a window pane in front of your IDP. It's not an IDP itself. An IDP is a combination of many tools. Perhaps at some point we should do another talk on architecture, showing like the whole.
Yeah, no, totally. How to avoid a platform engineering team to become a bottleneck? What if the platform engineer suffers with cognitive load as well?
Yeah, no, I think when we talk about developer experience, it doesn't just mean that the developer should be happy and everyone else should be miserable. I think ultimately, if you can have tooling that works for everyone, that people are happy using, that's much better, because you're going to be much more productive that way. But ultimately, if you need to deliver software to earn your bread or the company make money, the developer experience is very important because they're going to need to be able to create software for you, and then you're going to need to be able to deliver it. So that is why we keep talking about developer experience. But having also good operational experience is also good, is also important, because that means that your services are going to be running more reliably, and you're not going to have problems with that either. And your platform engineers will be able to deliver solutions quicker. So I think both are important, very important.
Cool. Is DevOps anti-DevX?
No, no. I'd say that DevX is a part of DevOps. I mean, many of the things when we talk about DevX, I mean, many of the things are said in DevOps as well, but I think DevX just takes more of a focus into what the developer experience is, right? We just like really focusing on this and make sure it's happy, because sometimes with DevOps, you can kind of follow into this pattern where, yeah, we'll empower developers to do everything. Here's an AWS account, go and do it. And yeah, that's cool in the sense that the developer does and maintains everything, but then it's harder to maintain standardization, compliance. It's harder for them to actually do the work, because it's just, AWS is not that easy to use. And for developers, it's not a very pleasurable experience. Usually people who work with AWS have years of experience and they need to set it up and all of that. So to pile that into developers is sometimes can feel a little unfair for them. So.
Yeah. Are there any specific skills the platform team should have to build a successful IDP?
Any specific skills? Well, I mean, infrastructure skills are very important, very, very important, especially with whatever cloud you are working with. I think infrastructure as code is very important. It depends on what tooling you're going to be using. If you're going to be creating your own tooling, you may need to have expertise in Go or whatever language you pick to create your tools. If you're going to buy or use open source tooling, you're going to have expertise on those tools. Backstage is a popular one, but Backstage is not exactly easy to use. So you're going to need to have some expertise there. Other people may choose to use other tooling, like other portals that are easier to use. Or in our case, we have a platform orchestrator that makes it easy some parts of an IDP as well. So.
Have you measured the success or evaluate our IDP implementation?
Have I what?
Measure success. You can say like what are the KPIs of successful IDP?
Well, how do you measure the success of your platform? I would say just look at the smiles of your developers and look how quickly they can keep deploying. And I think just get a feel for how your developers feel about your platform. If your developers hate your platform, and if software is not getting delivered quickly, then that's a good indication that the platform is not doing well. And like I said, all of the other points that I mentioned, if developers are happy and they don't need to do a lot of infrastructure tasks and all of that, I mean, then that's a good measurement of success.
And also probably like how many developers use it overall, to how many you scaled and
yeah. Well, I mean, yes, exactly. Like if you have a platform in your company, no one uses it, that's also a good indication that it's not a good platform, right? I think there was another talk, I think it was Brian Finster, I think his name was, he mentioned that you should have a platform that makes good practices easy and bad practices hard. And I think that's quite cool, because you don't want people to follow bad practices like, I don't know, like Git flow or whatever, and instead you want to optimize for the good stuff.
Follow-up question. Do you have any best practices or examples around monitoring of the IDP used by developers to be proactive, identifying any potential issues experienced by developers I'm wondering if monitoring and alerting can be helpful, also helps in determining what can be improved.
Well, I mean, it can be any monitoring tool. I mean, creating an IDP is open for you to pick whatever tooling works best for you. Like I said, try and pick whatever is easy and it falls within your budget. If it's simple to use and easy and gives you like the good user experience that I talked about, use that. For example, when I use GCP, I tended to use the Stackdriver. Well, now it's called something else. I forgot the name that they changed it to, but yeah, I mean, you can use that, or you can use whatever works for you. If your company is using something and that's good, you can use that. I mean, it really depends on the tooling you're using. I mean, I would be able to give a better answer if we were looking at a very specific architecture for an IDP, which this talk wasn't about to begin with. So
what if we do the next talk, just pick one company who is happy to share their IDP, and we just like get the Fernando expert evaluation of the IDP. That could be cool.
Yeah.
Does a platform team need a UX front-end skills to make a successful IDP? Can a platform team do with just default UIs, etc., as long as we have captured the workflow needs of developers?
So UI is not a requirement for an IDP. If you have a very well-designed IDP that works great for you and you don't need a UI, then more power to you. I mean, generally speaking, you would probably want a bit of a UI because, and this is what service portals are good for. When we talked about Backstage being a developer portal, that's exactly what Backstage is. It's a UI that sits on top of your IDP or on top of your infrastructure. So I'd say if you don't want to create one, just use whatever is available. I think that's what service portals are for, and just pick one that is easy to navigate and is easily understood. But yeah, no, you don't need to be a UI expert for it. I mean, you have to have a good taste, though. I guess don't pick
good colors, palette.
I guess.
In microservices architecture, what is the role of platform developers?
In microservice. Right. So in a microservices architecture, a developer would create services, 12-factor services, 12-factor applications. So again, it really depends. I mean, there are microservices companies that they use Kubernetes and the developers are very involved into the cluster. But I think you can probably mitigate that and make it easier with an IDP or picking tooling that is simpler to use. But one thing I've been hammering about, and I think a lot of people say, is that you should develop 12-factor apps. And seems like a very trite piece of advice now because everyone is saying it, but some people don't know about them. And I think 12-factor apps are very, very important for developers to create good microservices. And the reason why I was saying 12-factor apps are a way of operational experience as well, because whenever you have a 12-factor app, they're easy to run in a container orchestrator. That in itself is a type of good experience, good user experience. Hopefully that answers your question.
Fernando, we are going to have the session roast my IDP with Menino. Are you excited?
If I'm not able to answer all of these questions, I encourage you guys to add me in LinkedIn and message me there. I'm happy to respond.
No, but I'm serious. We're going to schedule something. But we have more questions, so let's continue rolling. How to calculate the ROI of an IDP?
The ROI being the return of investment.
Yes.
Yeah. So remember when I said that whenever you're trying to get buy-in from your company, like count to measure the number of hours that are wasted by your developers and the number of hours that are wasted by your developers learning, developing infrastructure, and just doing all kinds of drudgery and crappy work that they don't want to do. Measure all of that, and also measure how much people, how much churn out you have, and how much cost isn't there. I know it's probably challenging, but if you're able to accurately measure how much time you're wasting, and then when you have an IDP or when you have like a plan, and you can show that you are saving all of this time, then you can sort of then you can demonstrate that the amount of time that you saved is money. Because if you think about it, if you're paying, I don't know how much a developer gets per hour, like 100, let's just say £100 an hour or $100 an hour, and you're saving 1,000 hours, that's $100,000 that you're saving, right? You always have to look at this in terms of time saved and also the happiness of your employees, because sometimes we just look at features and we just look at the cost that's right in front of us, but there are like some hidden costs to how much time you're spending and how much effort you're putting in.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. Having an SRE team and internal developer platform team in the same organization, in the day-to-day, there can be a lot of overlap in those teams to improve paths to production. What do you think of this overlap?
The overlap between SRE and developers?
And platform team.
So what do I think about the overlap between the responsibilities? I don't know if I understand the question.
Yeah, like how would you divide responsibilities between SRE team and platform team, as far as I understand the question from Sven? Sven, please feel free to clarify. But yes.
So the way I would understand this is that your platform team would be dedicated into creating a platform where it's easier to deploy your applications, and your SRE would be focused on maintaining your SLOs and make sure that your architecture is resilient and it stays up. And that can go hand in hand with the platform as well. You can still work with them in order to achieve those goals.
Another question. Sometimes communication is a problem among different teams. Do you think IDP can be antibiotics language, if you will, that abstracts technologies behind scene, can improve communication and reduce cognitive load?
So again, the question is, would having an IDP impact negatively the communication? Is that did I understand the question correctly?
Like IDP becoming antibiotics for teams to better communicate.
Yeah. No, if you have a good IDP, I think, well, first let me make this point. Good design is good communication. If you have a product that is well designed, that speaks to you. When you pick up a phone, like an iPhone, or whatever, and you're able to use it easily, that's the designer communicating with you. So whenever you have a good IDP and you go into it and you intuitively know how it works, and you can see all of your services, and you can see where the documentation lays in your UI or whatever you have in your developer portal as well, that is a form of communication. And I would argue that is the possible best form of communication, because you don't want to give someone like a phone or something or an app and be like in 100-page manual and be like, okay, there, learn how to use this. I'm communicating with you via this long as manual. No, what you want is to be able to communicate like intuitively through that design. So that's why I keep stressing that design and user experience are so important. And I recommend all of you like to pick up like a book or read about user experience, because it's so important in order to be able to communicate. Because what I see a lot with engineers, especially backend engineers, is that they create something, but they pay no attention whatsoever to the user experience. It's just like, yeah, they will figure out. It's just look at this API, they will figure out. It's like, it's not like that. You have to really pay attention how you communicate with your users with your design. And I hope that makes sense.
I really like this philosophical statement. Good design equals good communications. You should have it somewhere.
It's not mine. It's not mine.
Yeah, I know, but still.
It's a good book. It's called The Design of Everyday Things. It's really good. It's really good. I think it has some very simple principles, but I think they're so powerful. And after you start reading this, then you start looking at bad design everywhere. Like I have an oven in my house that sucks. And, I look at it and it's like, man, this is so badly designed, You start noticing.
Next question. How a good IDP can deal with high rotation in application team?
What do you mean by high rotation? I don't understand what high rotation means.
Like people leave the team, like they are not stick.
So, okay, yeah, that's a good question, actually. I mean, first of all, if you have a very good IDP and good developer experience, your churnouts should be significantly less. So that's exactly what we aim to solve here. Good developer experience, good IDP, less churnout, right? The way you can deal with it, and this is what we talk about always, like having golden paths, having like good visibility, comprehensive visibility of all your services, having easy enrollments for things that developers need to do. Like a new developer comes in and he's like, okay, go into your portal or go into your IDP. This is what you have to do. Click here, generate this template, and you can work with this. It's just as simple as that, right? So yeah, I mean, a good IDP is not only contributes to fewer people leaving, fewer of your employees leaving, it also contributes to new people enrolling very fast. And in the future, who knows, maybe with ChatGPT, it's like, it's just gonna do everything for you. It's like, give me everything I need and boom, it's done.
In ideal world. And the last question, are platform engineers the new age DBAs? I don't know what DBAs means. Do you know?
Database administrators. No, I don't think they're related at all. I think you can have DBAs and platform engineers separately. I mean, being a good DBA takes quite a significant amount of experience with databases. And I suppose for what I've noticed is a difficult job to hire for because it's not usually seen as a very sexy topic, dealing with databases. So, but I think there will always exist. You will always need to have that expertise. I mean, I suppose that your platform engineers will need to have some knowledge of databases or will need to communicate with DBAs, but I wouldn't say that is a replacement.
Cool. Well, I don't see any other questions coming up, but guys, you know that you can always find Fernando on Platform Engineering Slack channel. You can easily join in here, or he also has this beautiful link to the LinkedIn. And thank you, Fernando, for a really concise but full of questions session. Menino, we're going to reach out. I think it could be interesting to explore this new session type, roast my IDP, but definitely need some sort of alignment and prep to understand better if that's feasible and what we can do there. But really excited about the new approach we took here. And thank you all for joining. Hope you enjoy your end of the day. Just a quick update. Next week, we're not going to have any webinar sessions since most of you will be at KubeCon, will be at KubeCon. Hope to see you at the House of Cube party. If not, stop by our booth, SU3, and see you the week after. Have a wonderful end of the week.